Welcome to In the News with Double O Des. I'm Des Bernardo, giving you my perspective on news from South Africa and the rest of the world. I know it's fairly late on this Tuesday evening, but there's a news article that I need to bring to you now. I've been aware of the situation in Mozambique for some time, but there's interesting developments with regards to our country getting involved in something that could actually cause severe problems for South Africa. And I've been keeping a close eye on this, and the fact that it's covered in the mainstream media now is very significant. And this article speaks of ISIS. Yes, that word's back. ISIS warns South Africa, steer clear of Mozambique conflict. Now, in the northern Mozambique province, there's been an ISIS infiltration. A lot of people have seen it very much just as some local groups that had grievances, that said that the government wasn't really looking after them, and there were youth that were disgruntled. But this has escalated to something that could become a regional problem. And it looks like South Africa has diplomatically gotten involved somehow, and ISIS is threatening us, saying that if we get involved, they'll bring the conflict to South Africa. Now, just so that you know what has been happening there, and the article won't cover this, is that entire villages have literally been wiped out. There's horrific things that have happened on the ground, and this is not the kind of thing that we want to see in South Africa. Not at all. In fact, it could become so uncontrollable, and I am trying to get my pulse on the ground to actually try and understand our government involvement right now and how they want to get involved in this conflict, and why ISIS would have actually given this statement, and why the mainstream media is covering the story. And this is in News 24. I'll put a link to the article underneath this video so you can actually go and read it, and I recommend that you do exactly that. In the subheadlines it reads, ISIS has warned South Africa not to get involved in the conflict in Mozambique's northernmost province. The DA wants Defence Minister Nosifiwe Mapisa-Nkakula to meet with the SADC, and Mapisa-Nkakula has previously been wary to speak about the matter in public. Now, I would be wary about that as well. ISIS has warned South Africa that it would, and this is a quote, open the fighting front, close quote, within South African borders, should it get involved in Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province. This is the northernmost province. This is according to reports on ISIS's latest newsletter, Al-Naba. An organization linked to ISIS, Ahlu Sunnah wal Jamaa, has been waging a violent insurgency in Mozambique's northernmost province, Cabo Delgado. It started in 2017, but the violence has escalated in recent months. They want to establish an extremist form of Islamic law in the province, even though their motives have been questioned by some as more compelled by greed. Well, there's always various motives for various different things, but as these things escalate, they get a life of their own. Other organizations get involved, and many people see opportunities, and this is where it can go wrong very, very fast. So if our country and our government don't act properly, we could really put ourselves in a bad situation, and this is certainly something we don't need on our shores. We have a history of violence in South Africa, of extremists, and we don't need extremists on any front at this stage within the country. In its newsletter, which is published in Arabic, ISIS reportedly wrote that European and American states are trying to convince South Africa to lead the war in Mozambique. They must have very good intelligence to actually bring about information like that. South Africa, though, has enough of its own problems, and war will put it in a great financial and military predicament. Well, we can't fight to save our lives. I mean, our soldiers are only good at shooting their own South Africans in the back, as I've dealt with in the last article. It states further that South African military involvement might prompt ISIS soldiers to start fighting within its borders. On Tuesday, DA MP Koeberg called on the Minister of Defence and military veterans to urgently engage her counterparts in the Southern African Development Community, SADC, regarding the increasing ISIS threat. Now, what on earth are they going to be able to do? Really? Approach who for what? It's such empty words. and it means absolutely nothing. These people don't care about politicians and what they do. They will do whatever they want to get whatever it is that they want. And by the looks of it, by my intelligence, it's mostly youngsters driving this. Most of these people have not been looked after by the Mozambique government, and they've used this as an excuse. And now it's become a political ballgame that's had many people killed. And this is where it gets out of hand, and it gets out of hand very, very quickly. I quote, "South Africa cannot afford to ignore this threat from ISIS or take its warning lightly. As a member of both SADC and the African Union, we have an obligation to safeguard the stability of our country and our neighbors," Mare said. So, close quote. Open quote again. "The minister needs to also play open cards with the South Africans and be honest about the threat facing our neighboring nation. Mozambique is a popular holiday destination, and many South Africans have friends or family living and working in Mozambique. With the dual threat of ISIS and COVID-19 plaguing the country, transparency from the minister will go a long way in alleviating the extra worry the situation might cause South Africans," close quote, he said. What this person doesn't realize is that sometimes it's just good to actually handle something and not say something about it. Often that's the best thing, is to keep quiet about certain things and actually handle and deal with them instead of creating panic. But this is now out in mainstream media, otherwise I would not have dealt with this. There's many other things I can mention to you on YouTube, and that I don't, because I'm responsible. If a person does not need to deal with something and there's nothing you can do about it, why say it? I wouldn't say anything that I say if there wasn't something that you could not do about it. And that should hold true with this as well. I think these people want attention, and he wants to try and make himself relevant. Mr. Mare, I hope you're listening. Mapisa Nkakula has previously been wary to speak on the matter. At a meeting of the Portfolio Committee on Defence last month, Mare asked whether South Africa's special forces were training in the north of Durban for possible deployment in Mozambique. Given that the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Naledi Pandor, recently said South Africa was in discussions with Mozambique about helping in the conflict with ISIS. Now, why would you put that into the public domain? If there's a recce's training or any special troops training for this, why put it in the public domain? You do not have the best interest of South Africans at heart, Mr. Mare. If there's any special interest our government has to defend our borders in a proper way, shut up about it. You don't have to speak to the whole world about things that are supposed to be sensitive. You're a fool, and you're annoying. The Secretary of Defense, Sam Gulube, said Special Forces operations were classified, and perhaps the committee could arrange that it was discussed under closed doors. That was a quote. And I would agree completely. These DA buffoons don't understand what secret means and why the word secret has to be there with regards to certain things, especially intelligence and intelligence operatives as well as special forces. If he does not understand that he doesn't belong in Parliament, well, it's clear that he doesn't belong there, and maybe he should just resign and put himself out of his own misery. Challenges. When Mapisa Nkakula answered the committee's question, she confirmed with its chairperson the meeting was open to the public, and then said she would not speak about Mozambique. And she shouldn't. She shouldn't speak about Mozambique or what's happening there. I quote, "There are challenges with Mozambique." Yes, there are. Close quote, she said. Open quote, "Whether Mozambique asks for help is another matter." Close quote. That is definitely not something that you share with the whole world and the whole country. There's so many things happening behind the scenes that's not shared with the public and shouldn't be shared with the public, because the public cannot be trusted with certain information. And that's why you need to be able to put a trust in the people using those services, applying those services, and believe that we have professionals working in certain institutions. like our special forces, that are highly trained to go and do operations when necessary, if necessary, in South African interest. That the South African Secret Service will make sure that outside threats to South Africa are dealt with, that the entire public shouldn't know about it, and that Mr. Maree should know better. Later in June, in a written response to a parliamentary question, Mapisa Nkakula gave the first public expressions of concern from the government that the violence in Mozambique could spread. Any violence could spread anywhere. The twak that you're speaking right now could cause things to spread, Mr. Maree. Because this is in the mainstream media now, I would prefer to have not had to address this until it was really necessary. Open quote, Defense Intelligence can confirm that there is an increase of Islamic insurgency activities currently in the province of Cabo Delgado, Mozambique, and these have the potential to spread to other provinces and neighboring South African development community states. Close quote, read Mapisa Nkakula's answer. Now, in certain instances, I don't think that the minister should give any answers when anyone's security is under threat, especially special forces. These people are highly trained. They put their lives at risk to keep us safe. And to expose them like this is absolutely shocking and unnecessary. You should be ashamed of yourself, Mr. Maree. You are looking for sensation. The DA is grabbing at any straws that it can to try and be relevant. This is not the way to be relevant. That'll be the end of this news article. You can look at it in the description below this video. I'm really sorry that I had to bring this to you, but because of this buffoon that doesn't know what he's doing in Parliament and certainly doesn't belong there, this is now out in the media, and it's really a pity. Thank you very much.